Hi everyone, this is Dr. Mike, host of the free iTunes podcast, Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike, but that's not why I'm here today. This is another Saving Savvy episode, really more of an editorial episode, I guess. And in this episode, I'm going to tell you why I'm going to wait on buying the new Sony A77II II. Now, I know what you're thinking if you've seen any of my other videos. You're probably saying, well, he's going to wait until the A77II is either at a closeout price or a refurb price, because I tend to do that. I kind of believe that the technology doesn't change that much from year to year, and you get last year's model, and it's just as much fun for a hobbyist like me to play with. And, you know, you get the camera for like maybe a third of the cost of what it originally cost. But that's not the reason why I'm waiting. Okay, maybe you think I'm a Sony hater and I'm not going to get the camera because I don't like Sony products. Well, that's absolutely not the case. I really do like Sony products, and I think they've done a phenomenal job in their imaging department with their cameras. They really have created a lot of very innovative and very fine cameras, and I reviewed a number of them right on this YouTube channel. And so I thought the Alpha 58 was a pretty good camera. The RX100 was, even though the title is very misleading, it's a very positive review. And even the QX100, although quirky as all get out and certainly kind of a beta version, at least when I got it, I know they've kind of improved the firmware. But still, I thought it took good quality images in many instances. So why am I waiting? If it's not because I want to get a better price, if it's not because I think that Sony products are bad, well, I'll show you why I'm waiting. Here we have a Sony Alpha 77, the original one. Now, I've never reviewed this camera, right? And you think, well, when did I get this camera? I was kind of a first adopter. I actually ordered this camera before it was even available. I was so stoked on this particular camera. Why? Well, because when it came out, or when it was introduced, it was on the heels of the Alpha 55, which was Camera of the Year. The next cameras were getting rave reviews for their low light performance with their Sony sensors. This had a weather-sealed magnesium body. It came with a constant aperture f2.8 lens. It had, for the first time ever in an APS-C sensor, a 24 megapixel sensor, and multiple other reasons, constant on-phase detection. I mean, I just was beside myself, and I couldn't wait to get this camera. And I did wait months to get it. And so I finally got the camera, and I used it for a little bit, and I put it away, and no conscious effort on my part, and I really didn't use it. And I was using other cameras, and I do that. I kind of switch around cameras just for the fun of it. And then I read some reviews, some more professional reviews, and they were saying that the camera was a little bit laggy in its controls, and a firmware had come out for it, and that firmware was making it more responsive. So I thought, well, maybe that's why I don't use that camera. So I upgraded the firmware, and I don't really know if it was less laggy or not, to be honest with you, but I used it for a little while, and then I didn't use it again. And it really sat on a shelf for a couple of years until I read the fact that the Alpha 77 II is coming out. And I thought, oh man, I gotta go try that camera again. So I upgraded to the latest firmware, which right now is 1.07. And I went out and I used the camera, and it just didn't excite me. So this time I thought a little bit, why is that? Why is it that this awesome camera that everyone seems to love just doesn't do it for me? And it really came down to two simple facts. One that's quite individual to me, and one that I think is worth noting. The part that's individual to me is that I have really big hands, but I'm an older guy, and you know, I have a little arthritis in my hands. And the camera itself is not nearly as comfortable to hold as even, for instance, the Sony Alpha 58, which I reviewed. So that's a little bit of it. It's kind of awkward for me to hold. It's kind of bulky, but that's a small part. The big part is that I am mostly an amateur, which means that although I do a little bit of professional work, mostly for for favors for people, they need some shots for their whatever. But mostly I take pictures of family and nature and things like that. That's my passion, and that's why I'm into photography. And what I found is that for me, many times when I'm taking pictures of family, I like to take those pictures without the flash because I think it looks more natural. And beyond that, I also think it's less annoying. Someone, because I take a lot of pictures, so if I'm constantly flashing in someone's face, they get a little bit peeved at me. So I like cameras when I'm doing that have relatively low noise performance. So let's look at some pictures from some different cameras, and these are very tight crops on the pictures, and I can't say they're quite 100% because I really just cropped down. I didn't really do a specific 100%, but we can assume they're around 100%. They're from different cameras, so I know we're kind of comparing apples and oranges, but I just want to show you why. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So, okay. This is a picture taken with the Alpha 77 at an ISO of 3200. This is a fairly tight crop. And don't forget, the Alpha 77, we're just in a mid-range ISO. In its regular ISOs, it also has a 6400, a 12800, a 16000, and then an expanded 25600. So we're right in the middle, the sweet spot. And I would say you definitely see a lot of digital noise, but it's sort of ugly noise. These are JPEGs. I've tried all different sorts of noise settings. I've tried also shooting in RAW, but I'm not a RAW shooter because these are just family shots. These are not professional shots. And the noise looks bad. Now to compare that to a different camera, this camera was released in 2011. Let's go to a camera that was released in 2008. This is a Nikon D90. So this camera is only 12 megapixels. It's really not as crisp. You have a loss of dynamic range, but it's still very pleasant to look at. And this picture was taken under pretty similar conditions. Well, how about the new Alpha 58? That camera has a 20 megapixel sensor. So here's a crop of that. I don't think this looks as good as the D90, to be honest with you, but it looks a lot better than the Alpha 77. Okay, here we're up to an ISO of 6400. So again, with the Alpha 77, we have in its regular ISOs 2 steps above that. We have 12,800 and 16,000, and then an expanded 25,600. And this looks absolutely horrible. It looks like my daughter has some sort of a skin problem or something. Now compare that again to the D90, and now we're in the D90, 3200 is the normal range. We are now in the boost range, not boost 0.3 or 0.7, but boost 0.1 or 1.0. So we're way outside the comfort zone of the D90, and yet I think the picture is more pleasing to look at. Well, how about the Alpha 58? Here again, that has a ISO range of 100 to 16,000. Well, it actually looks a lot better than the Alpha 77, but it doesn't look quite as good to me as the T90. Again, this is a camera that was introduced in 2013. I think it's quite acceptable. If I zoomed out, it would look just fine. So I'm not complaining about this at all. But at 6400 ISO, it's fine, but the D90 in its boosted range looks better. Well, let's take a look at this shot. This is taken with the Alpha 77, and this is a wide open shot. I deliberately took it at a high ISO. This is an ISO of 4000. Nothing wrong with the shot as you look at it, but to me it looks kind of flat and lifeless. And so if I do a tight crop on the grass, you kind of see why. And I don't know if this will show up on the YouTube video, but the grass looks like mush. I mean, you can't even see a blade of grass. The noise reduction is so smeary that you've lost all detail. And I think that, so when you're in these high ISO modes on the Alpha 77, you know, even though you don't hear a lot about this in the professional reviews, it's just not very good. Now, if I was a professional and if I was shooting at low ISOs, I think I could get some really, really awesome shots. So I took the Alpha 77 out into the woods, and just to show you, here's some shots. So this is a really beautiful shot at an ISO of 100, wonderful bokeh or bouquet if you prefer that pronunciation. Here's another shot at an ISO of 100. This almost looks like an HDR level photo, but it's not HDR, it's just a single shot. Really beautiful, really detailed, gorgeous, gorgeous shot. Here's another one of a leaf. Again, gorgeous shot, beautiful detail. I mean, I'm not saying the shot that I took is gorgeous. I'm just saying it's a really nice, clear shot. Here's another one. I actually really like this shot. Two of my kids walking in the woods, just a spontaneous moment. And looks absolutely gorgeous, clear, almost three-dimensional in a way. Again, ISO of 100. Here we have another shot of the little pavilion in the woods, and again, beautiful shot, a lot of detail, good contrast, the sky is blue, the grass is green, no complaints, again at that magic ISO 100. And here again, just showing using the standard stock lens. We have this little budding part of the tree, crisp and clear with a lot of bouquet in the background. Again, looks really, really beautiful, I think. So let me get out of that screen, which always gotta find that thing. So here we are once again. And so I would say, boy, you know, if I was a professional photographer and I was doing strobe work, or if I was out in the field using relatively low ISOs, the Alpha 77 is an awesome camera just as it is, but it doesn't perform well as a hobbyist camera for the reasons that I've shown you if you want to do a lot of natural light. So I'm using a camera that is 2008 to 2009, 10, 11, 3 years older, and I would prefer those images to the Alpha 77. So I'm really going to wait and see on this Alpha 77II. I really want to see that beyond just the reports that it has better noise performance, what does that really mean? And is it worth it for a hobbyist like me who likes taking natural light photos in low light conditions? Is it worth it for me to buy that camera, even the camera body, because I have some Sony lenses? I'm just not sure. Sony, if you're listening, don't release the camera until you fix this problem, because a lot of the people that are going to buy the camera are not professionals that have controlled settings and can use those really low ISOs and get those outstanding pictures. We want to push that ISO a little bit and still get outstanding pictures. So if you get some time, please give my podcast a listen. It's called Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike. It's free on iTunes and other pod-catching sites. As always, have a wonderful day. As always, this is an early in the morning recording, because that's when I have my little moments of free time. And then if anyone from Sony is watching, I know you've upgraded the firmware on this camera a couple of times. Can you do it maybe just one more time and look at those various routines that you have written for noise reduction and tweak those a little bit, because they kind of stink. Otherwise, it's a pretty nice camera. Take care. Bye-bye.